Hello everyone and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. My name is Preheat and today we have some very exciting news for the mages out there. So Blizzard actually just put in some notes and it turns out mages are actually getting some tuning. So this is something that we've obviously been waiting for a long time. I think a lot of us are still probably not too happy with the playstyle for Arcane Fire and Frost, right? I know for Fire especially it feels a little bit tired. It feels a little bit it's a little stale at this point, but we can't really complain too much about these buffs. They aren't fixing everything. This isn't like a perfect scenario where we're going to celebrate and say that everything is fixed, but obviously we cannot be too sad because these buffs are pretty big. So let's get into how big these buffs are. So first up we have Arcane. So Arcane is getting a increase of duration to Radiant Spark. You might be asking yourself like, well, what's the big deal with this? Well, it turns out that Arcane actually really could use this. There's a lot of things that you have to do as Arcane where you have to kind of like line up your ducks in a row, and the cooldowns just take like way too long to do. Like it's just, you're kind of pressed for time and there's just a lot happening. So like having more time to get your Radiant Spark damage out is huge for you. That being said, more time on Touch of the Magi, this one may not actually be good. It's actually kind of a mix, right? Like, so Touch of the Magi is a spell where it accumulates damage and then it explodes at the end, right? So having a longer duration also means that we have longer until it explodes. That can be a bad thing in a lot of cases, right? Because imagine you're in Mythic Plus and that mob that would have died in 10 seconds, right? Now it died, it died in 10 seconds still, but now the buff is 12 seconds instead of 10, right? So obviously in that case, the mob died and then the explosion didn't go off because the mob was dead. So it's a little weird that Touch of the Magi doesn't like do something if the mob it's on dies, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons why this is like kind of a contentious thing. Also, it means that we might actually hold our barrage even longer during cooldowns. The thing about Arcane is that it's very complicated and like the amount of work that goes into like the APLs is pretty high. This is probably the spec where we don't know where the impact is more than the other specs, right? Like there's obviously like an impact straight away that we can tell, right? Because we can just look at napkin math and look at how much damage Arcane Blast, Missiles, and Barrage are doing right now, and then look at how much they'll do in the patch, right? Obviously, that's one way to approach it, but you need to consider that these changes are actually changing how we might play Arcane and also which talents we might pick. Because especially with this, right, like the new 4-piece, how it's like having an increased duration, this apparently works with temporal anomaly. So like this could completely change which talents we run as Arcane. It could definitely have an effect there. So we'll have to wait and see what the actual impact is for Arcane. But just know that like the changes in general are good for Arcane. They aren't necessarily fixing the tier set in the way that we were kind of hoping for. Like they aren't reworking it, right? But like the buff is pretty big. Like this is a pretty substantial buff. I don't know if it's going to be enough for Arcane to like beat a meta, but it definitely is a huge buff for it, and definitely not super into the Touch of the Magi change, but the Radiant Spark change is going to be a huge quality of life. So this one we'll have to wait and see how Arcane pans out, but it's probably going to be pretty good. Okay, moving on to Fire. So this is where we actually have some numbers, because we can look at how much damage this deals, and we can use something called a spell override. You don't actually have to understand how this works. I already did it for you. But using spell overrides, we've been able to determine that the amount of buff this is around 7.5%. Okay, so 7.5% damage increase for Fire is like a lot, okay? Because Fire is not necessarily doing bad as a spec, especially with the new tier set, because the new tier, although it might seem bad or it like was poorly received initially, now it's looking to be really good. Like the tier bonus is spectacular, so we're also getting this damage increase over that tier bonus, right? Tier bonus itself is around like 14% or something last I checked, so don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere in that range, and now we're having a 7.5% increase over that. So what's one thing that's like really nice about this new like buffs, right? Especially with improved combustion, with the 4-piece, you're actually able to go Alexstrasza's Fury, and this is actually better than From the Ashes up to like 5 targets. And because of that, it actually means that, the one talent that we normally take here and we move from Cauterize to Call of the Sun King, we actually don't lose nearly as much going Cauterize now. So Cauterize is like back on the table, right? Because we don't have to worry about From the Ashes. And since you're not going to really be playing From the Ashes in raid, because there's not really fights where it's like over 4 targets generally. And even in like, Assault of the Sakali, you probably still play Alexstrasza's Fury. it's just an option for raid, and in fact it should just be your lock-in in most cases, right? Like unless you're like super min-maxing, you're just gonna lock in Cauterize. So this is great news for us, right? Because we get our cheat death back, right, without having to worry about losing a bunch of damage. Plus we get to play kind of a new build with Alexstrasza's Fury that, you know, encourages us to actually press our Phoenix Flame and gives us a new button to press for Hot Streak with Dragon's Breath, right? So it's looking really cool, and yeah, I'm pretty happy about these. The only thing I'm kind of sad about with the fire change is that they made Improved Combustion so much better, and Improved Combustion was the choice node with Tempered Flames that we were kind of flirting with the idea of maybe going Tempered Flames. It looked like it was like within 1% before. With this buff, that's no longer true. So like you're probably just not going to play Tempered Flames. One, it's more punishing to play. It's like harder to pull off. And two, it's also just worse now. So like, why would you even bother? If it's harder and it's worse, then there's really no point. Before it was about even, right? So I'm not sure why they ended up buffing Improved Combustion as well, but I guess they really just don't want us to play Temper Flames, I guess. And then Improved Scorch, this is obviously an interesting one as well. But Improved Scorch is probably not something that you're going to care too much about unless execute damage is like where you need to focus on, right? So yeah, overall, I mean, like, Fire's playstyle isn't changing really. You're not really getting off of SKB, right? Like it's still kind of more of the same. The only thing is just that you can actually use Phoenix Flame now and you aren't like locked behind from the Ashes, at least in Raid. In Mythic Plus, you're probably still going to play from the Ashes because like above 5 targets is still better, right? So yeah, I mean, not much is going to be changing for Fire, to be honest. Like it's still kind of the same thing. So if you love Fire now, you're going to love it even more, and you're going to probably top the meters because you're going to be doing crazy damage. But if you don't like the Fire design like me, and you're not really into SKB and hardcasting for a buff and having to like do uptime, this isn't going to make you fall in love with the spec again, right? It's just kind of a slight variation, and you know what? Maybe that's enough to make you appreciate it again, right? Or maybe you'll get tired of it real quick as well. But either way, you can play Cauterize, you can do really good in Raid, and I am predicting that Fire is probably going to be the meta spec in 10.1. I obviously will have to see like how all the bosses pan out, but there's a couple reasons for this. Number one, there's a lot of absorb shields you have to break, and those absorb shields almost always happen at 100% health. Okay, so that means we get fire starter value out of those shields. Number two, it's really high tuned, like the damage is really good, right? So like that obviously helps, and the fact that you have a cheat death is like kind of cracked. And then number three is that you have like good on-demand burst, and it's like a minute roughly cooldown, and that's ideal, right? Like you want to have like really good bursts and be constantly going into cooldowns, because typically things that demand you to like burst through something, they happen like on the minute interval. I'll give you an example. In Echo of Neltharion, right, second to last boss, there's these ads that spawn with a shield, and someone gets mind controlled and they go basically downstairs, and they have to kill this ad. They have to break the shield before you die, and you can't be healed. You have to just like do it as quickly as possible. And like pushing that phase depends on like how quickly you can break those ads, right? And the ads, they spawn on the minute timer, right? So like everything, it always seems like there's things that just line up with the minute timer, and having 1 minute cooldowns is just like generally really good, right? So like these are the three reasons I am predicting Fire is going to be meta. Obviously, you know, could be proven wrong here, but that's what I'm going with right now. And then for Frost, oh, that could also change too. Like they could just nerf this tomorrow, right? So anyways, yeah, for Frost, so the changes aren't as impressive for Frost or exciting, I'd say. I mean, most of this stuff is like changing things that we don't really care too much about, or that we just don't really play. So obviously Glacial Assault damage increase, Comet Storm increase, Kona Cold damage increase. These are all just kind of like, whatever, right? And then obviously Frozen Orb and Blizzard. It's nice that they're reverting some of the nerfs that they did before. It's kind of funny that they're going back and forth on this. But in total, the Frost buffs should be around 3% in the grand scheme of things. Frost was looking like it was tuned pretty high, but I think with the buffs to Fire, I think Fire's going to overtake it. And also Frost just like generally isn't good in progression, because it's got like a very flat damage profile. So it really hurts unless the fights are going really long. So yeah, I don't know. In general, like Fire's got Execute, it's got, it's got Cheat Death, it's got really good tune damage, it's good with PI. It's good. It's got good burst. It's got good cleave. It's got good AoE. It's got good mobility. Like I just think that Fire is going to be the play for this one. And yeah, sorry to all the Arcane and Frost mages out there. I mean, obviously your specs are going to be still good, and you'll still be able to perform well. And obviously you're going to be doing even more damage, right, with these buffs. But I do think that Fire is going to be the way to go. And obviously you're going to be playing it with Improved Combustion now. and you'll probably be playing Alexstrasza's Fury and Raid, and then you'll probably play From the Ashes and Mythic Plus, and pretty much everything else is going to stay exactly the same as it is, aside from you're going to use a couple more Phoenix Flames. So that's the TLDR. I'm trying to get this video out as quickly as possible. It's actually like 2 a.m. right now, and these changes just came out at 6 p.m. my time, but that was at dinner. So yeah, I just wanted to get in here and do a video as quickly as I could. And of course, I'm going to have more information about this later. This is just like my first reaction to this, my first impression. So we'll have to see how things pan out. But anyways, let me know how you feel about these changes. Are you excited that we finally had the dream come true with Arcane? Or are you just still looking for more? Are you still hoping for more of a rework? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you like this video, be sure to give it a like. And if you want to see more of my content, be sure to subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, and hopefully I see you in the next one.